Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at whoknewpodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 4 of season 8, Listen. The Doctor is fixated on the idea that when we are alone, we are never alone. This episode is written by Stephen Moffat, directed by Douglas McKinnon. It originally aired on the 13th of September 2014 and was originally watched by 4.81 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hi, this is Josh.
Hi, this is Brian.
The Doctor speculates that there are beings in the universe that are so good at hiding that we never see them or sense them until we are alone. When we talk to ourselves, they listen. He travels to get Clara to study this hypothesis, but Clara is dealing with a terrible date with Danny Pink. Both she and Danny have regrets about how their night ended. The Doctor dismisses the date and entices Clara with thoughts of the unseen companion. He tells her of a dream throughout time of people sensing something in the room when something under the bed grabs their foot. He turns off the safeguards and has Clara use a psychic interface with the Tardis to bring them back to the moment she has had that dream. Clara concentrates on the dream when her phone rings, making her think about Danny. The TARDIS picks up on her thoughts and travels to the West Country Children's Home in the mid-1990s. A boy named Rupert Pink waves to Clara from his room, so Clara goes to see him.
The opening shot was interesting of seeing the Earth, because you've seen that before, but to have the TARDIS doors open right next to it was a little unnerving.
And then having the Doctor doing a yoga stance on the top.
So that was different. It was like, okay, this is going to be a different episode.
The opening had so much promise for things to come.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be in the minority here.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. But yeah, I liked what the questions the Doctor was posing to himself, but to us, really.
Yeah, but I don't remember the Doctor talking out loud to himself a lot. They never really showed that.
He's never really alone on screen.
That's true. He needs an audience.
And Frank, the only time that the Doctor was by himself, I think, that we've seen on screen like that was David Tennant, right before Donna came on board, I think. Or in between Donna, something like that, in that time, where he's like, oh, you know what, I think it's the one with the adipose, the partners in crime, where he was babbling before she became an official companion. Or the runaway bride.
They've They've also mentioned many times that he's not good at traveling alone. Mm-hmm. And even Donna in The Bride said, find somebody. You need somebody to tell you no. Mm-hmm. He needs that feedback.
Sounding board.
Soundboard, yes. So we're along the same lines, just different words. Yeah, he needs that.
And I think this Doctor lends himself to talking to himself more than any of the others. Correct.
Yeah, this Doctor is very different than the others that we've seen in the new versions of the Doctor. He's very dismissive of Clara in a funny way. He doesn't care about her date. Oh, well, you already took off your makeup. It's too late. Because I didn't take off my makeup. Oh, you must have missed a spot. Anyway, just is done well. Some really good writing. He did have some what I thought were really bad Moffat double meanings. During the date, why it went so bad was, I'm going to go for the afters. And it's like, I mean dessert, not that we're going, just all the awkwardness of it, out of how that had the double meaning, which were really bad. And then I'll bring up some other ones, which I only caught after watching it twice, going, oh, that could mean this, and loved it. So there's still that great writing that he is known for.
Well, I think he's just really pulling from coupling when he's doing the Danny and the Clara date.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all about misunderstandings and people getting offended.
I could totally see Susan and Steve doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, how did I not catch on to that? That's perfect.
The dialogue is really good. Like I like all the, like he's been saying, the double entendres, the awkwardness is well written. It's just the overall story I find confusing.
Yeah, because there's like two stories. Can we have an episode that focuses on one story? Because it feels like what we've said before, where the Doctor is sort of an inconvenience. Because to me, like Clara is trying to decompress from this bad date, or not bad, but it went wrong. So she wants that moment to kind of like be in self-pity, wallow in it. But then he's like, "Let's go." I'm not ready. So I feel like that it reminds me of Amy and Rory in their later part of their run when they hear the TARDIS. They're like, "Is he coming now? I don't want to go now," type of feeling.
And I don't think there was much at stake for it to be a rush. Like there wasn't any reason to try to figure out this dream or this thing quickly, which isn't bad. Like, I mean, the Doctor's always fixated and gets in a rush for his own sake, but we didn't have anything else like helping us drive into the story
or the urgency of this.
Right. Well, I think that what you just said there, I think it comes a lot from the Doctor. This Doctor is very abrupt. He's on his own. He's on his own time. He's on his own timeline.
Well, he's also hyper focused on certain things.
He's very manic.
Yeah.
One thing that's going on with this Doctor is that, like you said, there's laser focused. He's fixated on something, but he does it in a way that negates and forgets everything else that's around. So even in the last episode, he had a feeling of no, this isn't it. This is what I'm thinking. This is my theory, and he has to prove that his theory's right. He has to prove that there's something out there. So that's the new mystery for him.
Yeah.
Right. I think some of his intense. I think he had a recent experience on the TARDIS of what he was talking about, the chills on the back of his neck, and basically it kind of what we see at the end of the episode is part of why he's so obsessed with trying to figure it out. But we don't know that in the beginning of the episode. This is a very retrospectively watching episode where you're like, you're kind of like, so what? But when you know what happens at the end, it's a bit of a Kaiser Sose, but it's not so obvious. So you're not enjoying it on that level up front.
But what's nice about that is that the Doctor doesn't know either.
Right.
It's not like they're keeping something from us.
Right.
It's all revealed to all of us on screen. Sorry. Go ahead. No, I'm done.
I think Auburn, the fact that it has two stories in a way is because it has to, because it's hiding that other story. Because we need a story to follow, because there are a number of reveals that if they were tipping that off, we would know it and it wouldn't be a surprise.
So knowing what we know at the end, who wrote "Listen" on the chalkboard?
The Doctor.
We'll get back to that, don't we? Oh, okay. We'll do it now.
I'm not 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not definitive in that either. I think it definitely leaves some questions at the end of this episode. Who was under the blanket? Who wrote on the cottage? We can Frankenstein some theories that I have. Yeah, we'll get to it.
Dancing theory?
I think they left it ambiguous on purpose. I mean, they were, signposting that it's ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like over the top, like, oh, it could have been a kid, it could have been something else. I guess what I find dissatisfying about it is at the end, do we answer the A story questions?
We'll see.
Not really.
Yeah, I want to say not really, but I guess through this discussion we may unearth some things.
Well, I have theories. I'm sure we all have,
of course,
theories to make everything work. But I
think the entire concept is fascinating.
That's why I like the opening.
I can't think of what the second one was, but if you could
perfect hider,
defense,
with the blowfish,
the perfect hider.
And I want to know not who wrote "Listen," but what happened to the other words: evolution, skill, hunter, defense, hiding. Where did those words go?
Oh, did they get erased? I didn't even notice.
There's only one chalkboard that I could see during the whole thing. I kept trying to find, are there more than one chalkboard?
It's in a pocket universe.
But it's just those little things, like, wait a minute, they got the good shot, but it wasn't, to me, out of continuity.
I have a theory
written on the board.
I have
I guess they're showing us writing that so that the signature or the writing was the same.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No. I can't bring it up now. I have to bring it up when
just
time.
Hopefully you remember.
Oh, I'll remember. I'll remember.
Before we go on, there's one more thing with the date. Clara's joke was not funny, and she should have known how he was going to react from when they first met, because that happened then, where it's like, oh, you're a soldier, you kill people. And he takes offense to that immediately when they met, the whole drill sergeant, because he was, the coach. Yeah. And just the whole thing. So she should have known better. And it seemed like the Claire that we know would have known better.
She should have.
After her separation, so they changing the character of Clara.
Yeah, but I also, when I was watching it, I actually took it as, you're such a sweet guy, you're not going to even punch someone, like, because of his demeanor is so sweet that, like, yeah, that says something coming from you if you're going to kill somebody.
Yeah, but
that's how I took it in the moment.
Sure,
right.
If this is an insular episode, but we've had that introduction, like Frank said,
right.
And it's just, I don't know, it feels like Moffat's agenda. Let's put them at odds and kind of will they, won't they, and put their foot in their mouth for both of them, like with the dessert and extras, and then with her and the soldier. It just, like, you can see the writing on the wall of how they piece this scene together, sort of.
Well, she even says in the conversation later on the episode that she runs, she has whatever she says about her mouth. She's got a big mouth. She
sure.
Her mouth.
That doesn't make it better for me, though. I can just see it.
No, but it might explain why she misspoke.
Sure. The other thing that I was thinking that would make that scene sit better for me, where Clara is in self-pity after how horrible the date went, and then the doctor's like, oh, you're in this mode, how much time do you need to get over this so we can go on an adventure? And then he just travels in time, and then like, okay, are you better now? Let's go. Like, he's got a time machine, he can do that, but that's not who this doctor is, I guess.
Well, that would have been funny. That would be a different doctor, though.
Yeah.
No, this one I thought he did really well. This is showing this incarnation of the doctor.
Then we talk about how Clara goes into the psychic plug with her hands into the console. Maybe, Frank, you can help with this, but in my mind, I was thinking that the Tardis and Clara have already kind of made amends. They are okay. They're friends. But this is not that Clara? Is that right or no?
No, it is. But that's just one level. This is... She's human, so needs the physical contact to do this. So the psychological connection, or the psychic connection, so the TARDIS can get to that period in time in her brain. So they needed a physical connection.
All right.
I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is it kind of, erases the whole Impossible Girl.
That's the thing I was going to bring. I'm like,
okay,
you're kind of like taking away from what that was before.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to talk to you, like specifically with you, because I know you have thought about this more than I have.
I agree. It's just because they had that thing, they could have done that in a previous episode to cut out a lot of that female rivalry. It seems like they're trying to do for the Doctor, or why she doesn't like Clara and locks her out. So it just seems we'll forget that part of it because they came up with a new idea. This is different. We've never seen it before. Okay, this I kind of like, but it just changes so much of the past. Going, they never used it. So it's like, okay, well, we just have to let that go because they didn't come up with the idea at that point.
Sure, yeah.
But I agree with you. It's just sort of, wait a minute, this could be very useful in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I think but that goes along with Clara being a little bit out of character, at least from our points of views. We can explain it later, but it's all those little things where it's like, well, that doesn't quite fit, and that doesn't quite make sense with what I know. And the other weird thing about the villain that we don't see is that we've had villains that do pretty much the same thing as whatever creatures the Doctor imagines are following him in the silence, which is very close to whatever this could be. Mm-hmm. So that's those are my things that I had trouble getting over to enjoy this. And it's right up front, perfect hiding. And we've spent so many seasons with perfect hiding. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also the Bastard Narada, nobody sees them. So it's just when this was written as an idea of a story. So it's sometimes you just have to give it. Because even just the psychic link, I like better because the memory is somewhere in Clara's mind. She can't remember when it first happened, how it happened. She's she doesn't even know she really had that dream. It's just something so common. So I like having that, no, we're going to delve into your brain. Just like the Doctor needs to touch the person to try and do a mind link like he's done in the past. This needs a physical connection to it, but it still just sort of plays around with the history.
Yeah.
Rupert tells Clara he is scared of what's under his bed. She slides under the bed to show him there's nothing to fear and coaxes him to join her. While comforting him, something sits on the bed. Clara and Rupert quickly come out from underneath to find someone sitting on the bed under a blanket. The Doctor arrives and tells him to turn away, and tell the being they will not look. It can leave, and they will not look, and it does. Clara takes toy soldiers and places them facing the bed, telling Rupert that they are his army. He names the army leader Dan. Dan the soldier man, Danny Pink.
I like this scene on its own because it shows Clara doing stuff that is heroic, like she's comforting a child, like a save the cat type of moment. But then you get creeped out with the weight on the bed and the mattress and then them underneath. I'm like, that's genuinely pretty scary.
Yes. I was looking forward to finding out what was under there because it just seemed something she or the doctor would do, would remove the blanket.
Yeah.
In the past incarnations of both, I guess. They would.
I want them when they're underneath the bed and the mattress comes down. You're totally freaked out, but it's like, okay, on 3, 1, 2, 3, and push really hard. Back up. And throw whatever's up there off balance and then get out of the bed, out from under the bed.
Well, someone's thinking. That's good.
I do like the time travel kind of paradoxes, of going back and setting things into motion that you didn't even realize you set into motion.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I wish they had done a better connection to the end, of connecting that to everybody. But
yeah. Thought about
yeah.
Go ahead.
At this point, we all know, I think the show is signposted it enough, and we see that Clara knows. We know who Rupert is, as soon as he says Rupert Pink.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy that, whoa, how do we get to transforming him into Danny? And I thought that was well done. But again, with the, like you guys said, with the whatever creature or kid is on their bed, I like the ambiguity, but I think I would have liked it better if we had pushed it one way or the other. Make it really something alien, or give us a clue at the end that it was all in the doctor's head and it was just a child at the home.
Mm-hmm.
I do like at the beginning when the doctor is going in and talks to the night watch guy, Reg. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the doctor turned off his TV with the Sonic just so he could steal his coffee. But that's the kind of, I do enjoy those ambiguities. What really happened there? And then even the doctor was the one who stole the coffee for sure.
Yeah. It's just like that Batman moment, but then you see Batman leaving.
Yeah.
It's just very funny to see the doctor next scene. He's just drinking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it in this episode, sort of, and it's a Rashomon style storytelling, but you're only seeing one of the through lines.
Yeah, it's true.
Aside from the bed sagging, this whole bit can also sort of fall into, when you see a blanket bundled up on the bed or in a chair, is that a person? No, it's not a person. Is that a person? And because, yes, to us, the camera, it was obvious it was a person. The head moved, and this, that, and the other. There was a weight on the bed, but it's almost I think they left it that ambiguous, because even when they were looking away from it, we never saw anything actually happen. Mm-hmm. And then the door slams. How many, and then that's an age-old thing too. It's just was it the wind? Was it just my fear? The window was open. It could have blown the door shut. The blanket could have just been bundled on the bed from when he got out of it, aside from the sag, so how much is their fear really playing on it? They obviously pushed it enough for us to be no, there was someone sitting on the bed. But I think that's sort of the ambiguity they're going for. And then my favorite part of this episode, and some of my favorite writing now to this date, now that I just watched it again, was the whole speech about how fear makes you have superpowers.
That's awesome.
And you think, you're afraid because your enemy's not afraid. But if your enemy's not afraid and fear gives you superpowers, you're actually stronger than your enemy.
Yeah.
That whole thing, it was just fantastic. And then they elaborate on it more in the end, a little too much, but
but I remember watching this live, and this was the moment that I'm like, okay, I think I can like this doctor, because in the other episodes prior to this episode in the season, he hasn't really done anything that is for me familiar of who my hero doctor is supposed to be. So I love that he does that to the young Rupert Pink, and saying what you just said, Josh, that you can use fear as a superpower. And it's tapping into that thing of a kid having a nightmare, but then a parent just saying, don't be scared, it's nothing. No, you need to kind of like give that kid some sort of tools as to explain the noise he heard, or the scratching on the window is tree branches.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Or even it's okay to be afraid. That means you're ready for danger. You're ready for danger. Nothing's going to happen, but if it were, you're ready for it.
Yeah, and I like that perspective change of fear is coursing through your blood, but it's also giving you something to combat it, and I like that.
Yeah.
And again, this is the first time I've seen the Doctor do something like that in this season.
I would love for this episode to be used in college in a psychology class. Yes. I mean, just the idea that they're going along with what is fear, what isn't fear, how people manifest what they're afraid of. You know, and it's just, I think just going through all this, watching it again, it's like, that's what this episode's for, a psychology class to go about the whole human nature.
Now that you mention that, even the date, they're both afraid of the date going badly and saying the wrong thing.
Right. So I looking at it from that perspective, I really like this episode. When we first watched it, not so much. But
well, I will tell you that I usually complain about style over substance, but with this one, the style was so horror-esque that I really enjoyed it. But I was able to say I like it because of that, and not because of the story quality.
And I think because of that, I didn't like it because the ending didn't pay off.
Yeah.
So I see what you say, because it was such a great horror story leading up to nothing. Yeah. So that's the part that I didn't like. So seeing it from this point of view and seeing it as just the, looking about how people deal with fear and how fear is always there, it just, put that in a sense, that's a different perspective. That it's like, okay, this makes so much more sense watching it this way.
I mean, jumping ahead a little bit to the end, it would have been great if the fear was nothing. So this was like fear is fear itself type of thing.
Right. Which I think is, watching it the way I did, that was what I got.
Yeah.
I don't think it's realistic to say, but it is screen time possible that it was the Doctor who sat on the bed, because he was in the room once they got out from under the bed, and you never really saw the bed. When they jumped out from under the bed, you didn't see the bed.
No, but we saw the being
behind
them, and Danny saw the being coming closer, and that's when the Doctor said, turn away.
He could have Bill and Ted it and gone back and got on the bed, from the future. So it could have been him, and he knew like that was all happening. So he was, there was no danger because it's the Doctor under the blanket.
And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing.
Yeah. I don't think that's the case, but it's possible.
Well, what I find funny is that they didn't hear that person come in, but they also didn't hear the Doctor come in, and he was sitting there the whole time. So it's going, well, you didn't hear it, doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just found the logic of like, don't look away. I'm like, Doctor, you're telling us things that are helping combat this fear. Like, you know what it is, but you don't. So it was just weird. That leaves credence to what Alburn was saying. And Josh is saying that could be the Doctor, because he knows what we're doing. He knows the purpose of this.
And we don't know what happened before this episode that got him into this state. That I think he was worried for Danny and Clara. He wants to find out what it is, but he couldn't do anything to save them at that point. So don't look, it'll go away, because it wants to hide. So in his own mind of how he's seeing it, he wants to find out what this is, but if it's something bad, he can't protect us too at this moment. He doesn't know enough to know what to do at this moment.
Or it could very well be an entity that is there, does these things, but has no malice. And it's our fears that are interpreting it like it's a dangerous thing. Meanwhile, it's just like, oh, so what'd you do today? Well, I sat on a kid's bed and said hi, but they turned away from me, so I left. Are you guys going to look at me? Here, I'm going to take my blanket off. Now, well, I'm leaving if you're not going to pay attention.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, I was making a joke out of it.
I know. I mean, I kept thinking, like, as we were talking, I kept thinking of the end of Back to the Future, where it's like the Doctor has to correct the timeline to get Clara and Danny to have an offspring. And he's like, what's wrong? Is it our kids?
Right. I love the little foreshadowing that they did, which I did not catch until watching it again. And that is Clara looking under the bed, going, you know what's under here? Me. It's like, oh my gosh, it just tells us. So I thought that was brilliant writing to go, we didn't even see it or hear it when it happened. I loved it.
Clara's messed up a lot of little boys.
I wonder if she went into all the rooms in that orphanage or whatever housing. The Doctor and Clara leave after the Doctor puts Danny to sleep and gives him a dream of Dan the Soldier Man. Clara convinces the Doctor to take her back to just after she left the date so she can patch things up with adult Danny. They begin to argue again, and this time Danny leaves. The Doctor shows up and introduces Clara to Colonel Orson Pink, a dead ringer for Danny who is from 100 years in the future. The Doctor used Clara's psychic remnant in an attempt to find the hiders, but the TARDIS took him to Colonel Pink at an outpost at the end of time. Orson is an early time traveler who was marooned there. He is somehow connected to Clara. Somehow? Really?
Somehow.
I thought that was a great sort of fake out where you see the sanctuary base spacesuit from like Waters of Mars and that same pit.
That similar
look come out, and then you're thinking it's the Doctor waving Clara in, like, go in the TARDIS. Yeah. Time is of the essence, and then takes off the helmet. It's not. That's great.
Great fake out. My only problem with it is nobody sees this guy. You know, this.
He's got a perception filter.
Maybe.
I'll give you that one, Eugene. Okay.
Because the Doctor is the one that sent him. Yeah. So
sure, if that's the okay, yeah. See, that's what I don't mind. Like, if you could easily just dismiss something, a problem because of whatever, then sure.
How cruel to take him back to a restaurant, you know, in like the classical time before he was born,
with no food. Yeah.
And then take him right back to the place where he's been in terror for 6 months.
I know.
Oh, with no.
But I could see this Doctor doing that.
Just don't pay attention to all the food.
He even came out of the kitchen, right? Was it the kitchen or
I think it was the kitchen, yeah.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to be there. He wants to go home. And this was the Doctor's way of getting Clara to help him find out what is at the hiders at the end of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how he wanted. He goes, yeah, I'll take you home afterwards. But he wanted this. You know, so I could see this Doctor doing that.
Going back to Clara with the date, wanting to patch things up, I think that's a very relatable thing. I'm sure there's lots of things that we regret that we could, like, if we had a time machine, what would we do, type of thing. And I think this is great. It's a great moment for Clara to be sort of relatable. Like, why would you go into a time machine? Just the way Rose wanted to see her dad in Father's Day in that episode. So I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And I like too how that didn't screw up any time continuity, because basically my first thought was, oh no, you're going to screw it up for the other Claire. But I'm like, no, the other Claire is still you in the timeline. You just did a bunch of things and then circled right back. Like, there's no paradox formed there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then they still sort of end up arguing again. So it's like they were always meant to have a first bad date.
Right.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But again, Clara's his buttons. and in ways that she should know better, like not even the army thing, but the bringing up Rupert thing. Like, aren't you experienced with, like, you know, intelligence and secrets and like not sharing things that you know about somebody that you just learned from?
When you're on an awkward date, you're not thinking. Your heart's pumping, your adrenaline's shooting. Like, you're not thinking straight when you're very nervous in a nervous romantic situation.
You just described fear, Josh.
Yeah, her superpower didn't work. Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
I thought it should have, as a funny moment, there should have been a waiter or waitress that came by and had a name tag Rupert, and she just said Rupert.
No, this I liked. I see where you're coming from, but this one I liked because it was a tense moment. They got through that, relaxing a bit and saying how silly they've been and all this stuff. So it just comes out, and she immediately knows that she messed up, that she screwed up. She shouldn't have said it. You know, she gets it. It wasn't like before when she was saying, yeah, well, you were a soldier, so, you know, that line of killing someone means something different from you. It's like she didn't get why that was not funny. This one, she got what she did wrong right away, and it just was a slip.
I will say that this scene, it definitely had me rooting for them. Like, cool. We use time travel in a relatable way. Now you're going to be okay with this date. And then it just goes south. So I was like, wow, that's good that you got me to feel that.
Yeah. I like that. There's also, when they're meeting Orson, the doctor says that Clara has a wide face and needs 3 mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Danny and she were laughing about earlier with Courtney, saying she can't concentrate in class because her face is too wide.
So wide, yeah.
So it's like, how did those two tie together? It's like, what is that something Jenna has to deal with, or what?
Yeah, right. Well, I like the deprecating humor of it. And then I like how he made the mirror jokes earlier. Like, can't you just turn your head? And then he goes back and says she needs 3 mirrors because her face is so wide. It's just, it's brilliant.
Yeah, that was very funny. Everything with the doctor I thought was great. And then going, well, why did Courtney mention it? What's,
Well, he's dropping seeds that we're going to see her later. That's probably why.
Yeah. But I think it could have been, I don't know.
I have a criticism here where Orson Pink is from 100 years in the future, and the doctor is asking Clara, are you and he related? I'm like, dude, you're smarter than that. The doctor would have scanned him. The TARDIS would have scanned him. There would have been a number of things. I'm like, you can obviously see that there is a resemblance with Danny, and they're going on a date. So in your brain, you're kind of connecting the dots.
Yeah.
But what caught me is 100 years in the future is the end of everything. So where is this in, what is this doing breaking canon wise? Is it like an alternate timeline? Like what's that doing?
He was from 100 years in the future.
Right.
Of Clara's present?
Clara's present.
Okay.
Right. Supposedly her great-grandson.
But
then he was a time traveler. And they said it in a line, he was supposed to jump ahead a week, and they overshot.
Okay, so he didn't time travel to 100 years in the future. He was from 100 years in the future.
And they traveled way to the end.
Thank you very much. That was sticking in my craw.
So they say it's so fast that you think that he's from 100. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, no, Frank's right, but
yeah.
Say that again. No.
I'll edit that out. Just kidding.
It was good that even though they were only going a week into the future, they sent him with a base and 6 months supplies of whatever he needed.
Right.
I think that's what throws me off a little bit.
No, I'm thinking that everybody there died, so he just has whatever supplies were left.
Oh, so he's part of a team of time travelers.
No, I thought he went alone, but he went to the end of the world where it's just an abandoned base.
So it's just a bunch of MREs that lasted.
Yeah.
Oh, so he didn't. He time traveled into that space that was already there.
That's what I see it as. I'm not sure if it's right or not, but
I'll buy it. That's better.
It is better. I wish they would have, again, done a line.
I think Frank's right. I think that if you watch it again, it's probably just worded poorly and quickly.
Yeah. Josh, stop making me edit things. Just kidding.
The TARDIS materializes inside the outpost at the end of time, and Orson packs his things. The doctor says he will take him home, but the TARDIS needs to recharge, so they will leave in the morning. Orson doesn't want to stay, but has no choice. There's nothing left alive at the end of time, but Orson feels something is outside the ship. The doctor's unseen entity. Orson stays inside the TARDIS when Clara sees that he has a family heirloom for luck, the army leader toy soldier she gave to young Danny. Orson says it worked because they found him.
There's your paradox there.
Yes.
So if a family heirloom from the childhood of 100 years ago is still in the family, like they would have to have pictures of the people and know great grandma Clara.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, he pretty much says it. She says, because he gives it to her.
Yeah.
She says, I thought it was a family heirloom. And then he says something along the lines of, that's right. Like, so he knows it's who she is.
Right. I agree with you. Oh my gosh, Josh and I are agreeing a lot this time.
Well, it's like Auburn's bringing up, it's just odd that if you know what your great grandmother looks like and somebody is a dead ringer for her, you wouldn't comment on that. I'm just saying.
That's true. I don't know what my grandmother would look like in her 30s.
Yeah, but your grandmother also didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah,
had a camera.
That's the thing.
And video.
Right.
Like, it's a lot different. People from the last 15 to 20 years from today are going to be emblazoned. People are going to know what they look like. It's a lot different than the 50s and stuff. Whatever. Anyway.
Maybe it was lost in World War III.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's
100 years, something could have happened.
Yeah, that's why all historical records were lost.
He was only able to save Dan the Soldier Man from.
Right.
Because that was an electronic. There was an EMP that went off and destroyed everything of digital.
Exactly. Nobody takes pictures anymore.
Skynet.
Photos on them. That's perfect. That's it.
Yeah.
The EMP war.
Yeah.
And that's why they developed time travel within 100 years to go back and stop that. But
Right.
Yeah.
But they went ahead, not behind.
Yeah.
They were looking for 1.21 gigawatts.
The Doctor and Clara wait in the outpost to test his theory about the hiders. The outpost begins to creak and make other sounds when 3 bangs sound from the airlock. The banging continues in sets of 3. The Doctor sonics the airlock door and it begins to unlock. He orders Clara to get to the Tardis, but he remains because he needs to know and see the hiders. The airlock opens, sucking the air out of the outpost. Orson goes out and saves the Doctor, who has passed out. Nice wire work. I mean, how else would they have done that with Capaldi hanging from the thing like Total Recall?
Good sound effects. I mean, they did a good job of building that atmosphere with reactions from, everybody on set.
It's also ambiguous enough that you're like, is this the space station settling or is this a creature? I like that.
Yeah, I was listening to it. It was 3 distinct bangs, but it was also 3 bangs in a way of like, I could see pressure building up and then like releasing and just...
But it was at different intervals.
No, I don't
first
think
it was 4 seconds. I counted. Then it was like 2 seconds, then 1 second, and then it went back to 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds.
That might have been for dramatic tension.
But I liked it, but then it's like there's a bit of a pattern, like when
True.
it first starts, it got built up really quick, and then it's releasing that pressure more at a constant pace after that.
Right.
And that's probably going to extend.
I thinking about it now, because you mentioned the pattern and the knocking, I would have expected the Doctor to go to the door and answer with his own knocking to try to communicate instead of just, let's open up the door and see what's out there.
Do we remember what the Doctor did with Midnight? Did he communicate? Did he do something similar to that? Like knocking back?
Which one was Midnight?
I believe he did.
Where they're trapped on that tour bus liner thing?
I think we've seen the Doctor have fear before, both with Tennant and with Smith. And when they're really fearful, Asylum of the Daleks, when the Daleks are coming towards him, he panics. When it's really going down to it, because like all the Daleks are coming after him. And this, I don't think he's thinking that straight, because it's filling his hypothesis of what it is. So everything it is what he fears. So I just think on each one of those 3, there was one point, I can't remember exactly where Tennant's was, but they just weren't thinking or acting like the Doctor we've known in that person. And
right. Like when I'm afraid, I want the Doctor to come save us and do this. And that's not the agenda of this episode. So it's really off.
Right.
Earlier on, when he has the TARDIS in her bedroom, and he's like, yeah, I hid in here in case your date went well and you brought him home.
Right. That was good. Also, Clara's here going, okay, do you now come with your own mood lighting? Because the lights changed. But the accent was enough. But that was a fun little line.
Yeah, the accent's enough. And I was like, why would he have mood? Oh, because he's moody and he's Irish. I get it. Or Scottish.
And because nothing's really happening, they're just waiting. I think his mind starts putting pieces together that he looked at a long time ago. Because then he asks, who are you having dinner with? Really seeming to be more interested in, wait a minute, that could be the catalyst to all this.
Right. Now, that's the one thing I really don't like about this whole episode, is that she just keeps her mouth shut about that. About that she knows why they went to see Rupert and this, that, and the other. Unless she's just embarrassed, like I see no purpose in her hiding that fact aside from creating on-screen tension.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by seeing the writing on the wall. You can see what they're doing.
Yeah, it's basically old-fashioned. Somebody's got a secret that they don't want to tell. Three's Company, Frasier. This all could be solved with a Post-it. If there's no reason for these 2 people to not have this information aside from the tension of someone's keeping a secret.
And we know from earlier that the Doctor reiterated how important, affecting the timeline could be. And she's, that's also out of character. With a companion, we expect them to share with the Doctor when there's temporal problems happening. Yeah.
To me, that's just an irresponsible companion.
we're talking about how Danny was treated early on, and I wonder if some of that had to do with my personal like growing dislike of Clara the first time I watched through this season, because she is, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but as a man, like I'm gonna tend to relate more to Danny, I think, in this scene than Clara. So in the scenes at the restaurant on the date, and yeah, just like the continued awkward foot in the mouth, and even being a little like underhandedly mean to him, where we've seen that she knows that that's a trigger, and I get that. Yeah, she's putting her foot in her mouth, she can't help it, but that doesn't endear her to me as a character. That like increases that distance. And then also her not telling the doctor when there are key pieces of information that she knows that she needs to tell the doctor, I think also work to kind of like turn down my how much I liked Clara as a character.
Your favorability.
Yeah,
I get that.
And it might have been subconscious. Like I might need to,
sure.
I doubt I put it together at the time.
Well, a bit of a callback is that when the 12th Doctor awakes from being passed out, he says, Sontarans perverting the course of human history. He says that to Orson Pink. Those are the first words that the 4th Doctor said in Robot, who was describing the events of what he experienced in The Time Warrior, which we did with the 3rd Doctor.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, Moffat knows Doctor Who. He just goes a different way sometimes. But it's nice that he knows.
Yes, he does.
There's also a line here, because they're saying, well, why is it unlocking? Why is the door unlocking? And he just sonicked it, so he triggered something possibly. But then when Clara's ordered back into the TARDIS, she's in there, and then she's looking at it going, oh, God, he's opening that door. It's him. He's doing it. He's opening it. Yeah. And that's when Orson goes outside to try to save the Doctor.
But then before that, there's that static interference distortion on the monitor, and she's like, of course it's going to be there. I'm like, that's what I thought. I'm like, of course, the what's it called, the thing we need to see, we can't see.
Right. This is a point where I realized the correlation between the A and B stories. And that is the fear that the Doctor traveling alone manifests into this hiding, and the fear Orson has manifested into what's outside. By being alone, they've made their fears become so real. And I never saw the Doctor and Danny or the Doctor and Orson similar before. But then just this idea of it is like, oh my gosh, that's like the same thing going on with both characters and how they're handling. One wants to run and one wants to face it.
Right. It's almost like the Doctor, because he has this instinctual sense that there's trouble, he goes around looking for trouble.
Yeah, and again, that's why I think if this episode was done a little differently, fear is fear itself. Maybe it's a little too high concept for a show like this when we want to see the monster.
I don't think it's too high concept. I think it's just the way they told it was more horror centric.
Yeah. I think they focused on the wrong aspects, maybe, is what I'm trying to say.
I love the horror aspect of it, but
I do too.
Yeah,
that's the practical part. Like hard fact. That's the practical part of the story that Auburn was saying in the beginning doesn't really have a payoff. Like the horror part of it is telling us factual things, and it never really delivers, like you guys are saying. I think the psychological aspect of it, I love it so much. I don't care.
Okay.
I just listening to you guys. I thought about the first Blink, the first one with the angels, and how at the end of that, like it had that wrap up monologue where like don't blink, like and showing all the gargoyles and everything. Like I think something as simple as like a 10 to 20 seconds of that, like with back to the kids under the bed and the hand grabbing them, like would have been enough of a capper to connect it, and left it ambiguous. Like, is it real? Is it not? I don't know, but everyone's afraid. Like
even if they had a shot of someone, on some planet or whatever on Earth, like walk into a bedroom and like someone's on my bed and they turn the light on and it's a blanket. That's
I mean, that concept reminds me a lot of Little Monsters with Howie Mandel and Fred Savage, where the portal to the monster world is under your bed. And then I think they did it to a different effect with Monsters Inc., where the closets or the door to the bedroom, I guess, is the doorway. No, that's a great idea. I like that, Albert.
The cloister bells begin to chime. Clara connects to the psychic interface, which brings them to a child crying in a bed in a barn. Danny stays inside the TARDIS to take care of the Doctor as Clara approaches the child. The kid's guardians come in and Clara hides under the bed. They want the boy to come back inside with the others. The male guardian is frustrated with the boy. He just weeps all the time. As they leave, Clara hears them talking about how the boy will never join the Academy and will never become a Time Lord. She realizes that the boy must be the Doctor. The Doctor has awakened inside the TARDIS and calls out for Clara. The boy on the bed is startled and places his feet upon the floor. Clara grabs his foot from under the bed. She tries to calm the boy by telling him it's a dream and that he needs to just lay back and go back to bed. Everything will be fine if he just lays down again. Clara returns to the TARDIS, believing that there is no hidden beings. The Doctor was just scared of the dark. She orders him not to see where they are, and the three of them leave in the TARDIS. They return Orson to his own time, and Clara goes to reconcile with Danny.
Yeah, so the whole speech that she gives him, a bit of a soliloquy, which was an expansion upon what the Doctor was saying in Rupert's bedroom.
Yep.
I think is great. I think if I had kids, I would write a number of things down from this episode to tell my kid, things like that. So, and the whole thing of like, she is partially responsible for the Doctor even having his issues of needing to be a savior or looking for trouble. What's that? Well,
partially? This is the first Doctor, because this is when the Doctor was a child before becoming a Time Lord.
Before becoming a Time Lord, okay.
He was just a Gallifreyan.
Well...
And we saw in the other episodes where they then take those that have the ability or possibility and have them look into the time vortex, and the Master went crazy and the Doctor didn't. But that's when they become Time Lords.
Okay. But I like, too, how there's a motif with Clara, how she infiltrates the Doctor's past, from the other episodes.
Yeah.
And, anyway, I thought it was a very touching scene.
Yeah. Going off what you're saying, like the whole thing about fear, she said, her words, I think, are, fear doesn't have to make you cruel or cowardly. And that echoes the promise, I think, from Day of the Doctor. Mm-hmm. But then also we did An Unearthly Child, where fear makes companions of us all, is a phrase the Doctor said to Barbara.
Oh.
So that's why we do those episodes, to kind of tie things in.
No, it's great.
And that's what's good about Moffat knowing it. And so he does bring it back. So I love that continuity.
It's in this scene that I wish that they had somehow psychically connected her act with him to everybody having that same dream.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that would have done what you were saying that the episode is missing.
Have you guys had that dream?
Where somebody grabs your foot?
Yeah.
No, but I've had the fear of my whole, for most of my life, especially as a kid, that I used to jump from my bed to the middle of the room.
I did too.
Or when I shut the light off, I jumped from the middle of the room to my bed.
It's funny because I remember getting my own bed for the first time, and it definitely felt like there was somebody underneath it.
Underneath or in the closet, I wouldn't turn around.
But what's funny is that then my mom gave me a small flashlight, and I found that made it more scary because that small flashlight casted a bunch of shadows.
Right.
So I was like, I'm better off not using that.
Yeah. Oh, and I love the coincidence at the end when she says, you're going to come back to this barn.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I don't know if that's a coincidence. That's Moffat's writing.
Oh, well, not coincidence, but that's the wrong choice of word.
Okay.
It's a coincidence in the way that she said that, and it basically predicted a bit of the future in a way. She didn't anticipate that.
That's her past, is it? No, not yet. Yeah.
It's the Doctor's past.
But they already did the 50th.
They already did it.
She knows.
She knows of that location.
He doesn't.
Yeah,
Clara was in there.
No, they both do. But no, at that time when he's a kid,
but
she doesn't know what's going on. So she knows more than he does.
Does Clara know that location? I don't recall.
Yes, she was in it.
But the way it's presented in the episode, I think she realized it later. When she first gets there, she doesn't know.
I think to me, it's just, she doesn't realize what barn she's in.
It's just the barn. Different. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the coincidental part I'm talking about. My
Yeah.
point is how that bridges that gap of yes, he does come back there when he's at his most afraid.
Mm-hmm.
She was speaking metaphorically,
but it was literal as well.
That you'll come back when you're the most afraid. You'll come back to this barn. You'll replay this moment in your mind, and you'll remember me saying these things to you, and you'll feel safe when he ends up doing it literally.
dawned on me when I was watching it this time why they went to Gallifrey. And that's
which time did they go to Gallifrey?
Just now with the barn.
Okay.
While she's figuring this out, I think, because the doctor wakes up a little bit and moans while she's trying to travel them to someplace home or someplace safe. We don't know what she's really thinking, but then she's like, the doctor's someplace safe, the doctor's home, or something like that. Right. That's why they went to Gallifrey in the barn.
Yeah, and I took it also too as these are the two people she has the strongest feelings for today in her mind. Like, she had strong feelings for Danny just because of romantic interest that she just met and all that stuff, and she has the strongest feelings for the doctor in her life. So in those moments, and then in addition to what you just said, like, she starts to wake up, so she gets distracted by him.
No, to me that helped a lot because it makes no sense for them to go there. I really liked it watching it from the other point of view this time. Yeah. It's like, this is really a good story.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I mean, I'm over speaking, but when this episode ended, I was like, I think this might be one of my favorite episodes. So when Auburn said what he said at the beginning, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm in the minority.
And I really don't have a problem with Clara not telling the doctor.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that much of a problem. But
just because you're on your first date with someone, it goes horrible. You don't want to tell somebody that you know is going to judge.
I still feel it's being an irresponsible companion.
When you're time traveling and have experienced like the things that Clara has experienced, even this Clara with the doctor, I think if you realize, like, I know this person in the future and we just created his identity, with the whole Dan the Soldier Man, we should speak up and say, maybe, Doctor, we should pause, and I think we might have done something bad.
Mm-hmm.
I could totally understand why she doesn't tell Dan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But the doctor, a different story.
Yeah.
So going back to the barn, the doctor, the young doctor before he becomes the doctor, I guess. This is also echoing what the ninth doctor told Nancy in The Empty Child, that he knows what it's like to sleep alone.
Right.
And then with Madame de Pompadour, he also commented on how he had a lonely childhood.
She does to him, right? Which is, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I think she does. So lonely, doc. Yeah, right. That's right. So this is now the visualization of that loneliness. And Moffat wrote both those episodes.
Oh, okay.
Meaning The Empty Child and Girl in the Fireplace.
I want to know why he's crying. I want to know more about early life of the doctor.
For me, it was a Tuesday night.
But it just seems so out of place because it's like he's always crying every night. So it must have been he just got there.
He's an HSP.
Which is?
He's a highly sensitive person.
Okay.
He's just a lonely kid going through a rough time.
I know, but it's going on to the academy. They weren't his
never
parents.
Fits in.
No, but he was trying to get to the academy rather than the army. He's not at home. Those aren't his parents. Come in with the other boys.
What's the BBC's children's hour? But I could see a spinoff like Gallifrey Academy on, a little half hour, couple kids doing doctory stuff in robes.
Being terrified and then crying at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
It writes itself.
Yeah, so I guess we are at the end of this, there is no monster, or we are the monsters. Our fear is the monster.
Our fear. That's, again, fear is fear itself.
Yes, now I'm even more convinced because that could have been a kid sitting on the bed.
Yeah, I always viewed that as, eventually I would view that as a kid sitting on the bed. It just always one of those things where everything, and the noises at the end of the universe were creaking of the station. And why does the door open? Frank's right, because he sonicked it.
And then he didn't see anything that we know of.
No.
The air shell cracked. I guess that's out of the ordinary, but not completely out of the ordinary.
Okay, so all of this discussion that we've been having, Stephen Moffat had a conversation with the other executive producer, Brian Minchin, and he said, what if we make an episode that deals with the sound design? Let's try and do a story that's just about what the Doctor thinks about monsters, that in which the monster is never actually seen. So that's why we get what we get in this episode.
That's great.
That's interesting. It's like, let's make a Jaws where we don't show the shark.
Yes.
Let's make the silence where we don't see it.
That's why it was the first one was a success.
But they still showed it.
Yeah.
Just very limited. But to not show it at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that, yeah. Thank you, Eugene, for explaining that.
Yeah, as a horror fan, it's like, I need that payoff.
Yeah.
All right, so the cast, we have Samuel Anderson returning like we said he would in the last episode. He plays Danny Pink. And we also have returning John Hurt as the War Doctor. Remy Gooding plays Rupert Pink. This is his only credited acting gig he's done. And this is his first credited acting gig he's done.
He was really good. I like that. I wanted to mention it earlier, but I waited till you mentioned him.
Yeah, I was surprised that he hadn't done anything else because he's really good in this. And in the behind the scenes, they said they enjoyed working with him. And they didn't know that this was his first acting gig.
He watched the episode and was like, that's it. I'm not acting anymore.
I'm too scared.
They cut the best line. Forget it.
Robert Goodman plays Reg. He's the, I guess, caretaker in this orphanage, I guess, for Rupert. He played Night Watchman in The Nevers. He was in a bunch of classic Doctor Who episodes. He was Mandrel in Nightmare of Eden. He was in Full Circle with the Fourth Doctor. He was in Arc of Infinity, Enlightenment, Frontios, and Resurrection of the Daleks with the Fifth Doctor. And then he was in The Trial of the Time Lord with the Sixth Doctor. So I think this is the most credits in classic Who of an actor that has appeared in New Who.
I wonder if they go back to these, classic actors or whatever, or is Doctor Who such the Law and Order of Britain that like you just I'm on Doctor Who again this week or next month? It's like, you any Doctor Who's this year?
Yeah, I think it is the Law and Order version where everybody just shows up.
Yeah.
Michael Jones is uncredited, but he plays the boy in the barn, aka the Doctor. And side note about that is that the director Douglas McKinnon found an old photo of William Hartnell, a young photo, and so they styled Michael Jones's hair to look like that.
That's funny.
And too bad in editing they cut the hair.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Eugene, I had to.
And
I'm so sorry to everybody. Eugene, what have you done?
That's where you put, you're right, Frank.
Oh.
That was more of an okay, Frank.
It was an embarrassment, but I just had to share it with my friends.
Okay. So Kieran Shaw, he plays the figure underneath the blanket. So there is somebody underneath there. And this guy is in everything that we've seen in the last couple years. He plays a goblin scribe in The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. He plays a goblin in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. He plays a Ginnar Brick in the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He is the Bravos Theater sound artist in Game of Thrones when they go see that play. He is Tito in Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Neeper's Panpick in Star Wars: The Last Jedi, Nambi Jimma in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. He is Karji in Solo: A Star Wars Story, Ulin Musters in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, Granick in Andor, and he is Abu in Raiders of the Lost Ark, featuring Indiana Jones. All right, so listen. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
Josh knows his answer. You should go with him.
Yeah,
first.
I'm gonna say Josh. Go ahead.
I say a new Who viewer because aside from the horror elements not necessarily paying off, if you're unfamiliar with the show, you don't really think about what to expect. You're just watching it for what it is, and I think the psychological part would tell you more of what story to follow. You wouldn't be thinking like, well, I want my superhero, the Doctor, to save the physical day. Mm-hmm. You would just be watching this show, and I think that's kind of the mindset I was in today. I had no expectations. Just watch it before we have our episode, and I think it's a really great time travel show, and that's why I think it's great for a new viewer because it has, I don't want to say paradoxes, but it has that
cyclical nature.
Yeah, the cyclical nature of time travel things happening. Everything, and it's got great. It doesn't have a ton of it, but it's got great Doctor and Clara banter. I think all the performances are great. Danny, is charming, and it gives you enough of that horror element, which is really the thing. Is yes, this has a horror element in this episode, but there are I would say the majority of the episodes of Doctor Who feel like a horror movie. Like, it's not all that out of the ordinary. So it gives you a really good taste of it. And I think, again, like anything that I felt short is only because of what I already know about the show.
I don't know. I like this episode. I liked it from the first time I saw it because I always thought about it. And they leave it ambiguous, but not in the annoying, for me at least, not in the annoying Moffat way. It's actually, you have things to think about after watching this episode. Was there a kid under the blanket who wrote with the chalk? And you can make it be anything you want it to be. But as an episode, I don't know if I would expose a new person to this. I'm going to go with fan just to go with something.
Well, I was a fan when I first saw it, and I didn't like it, so I'm not going with fan. Sorry, Brian. But because it didn't pay off the way I thought it would in the horror aspect, I didn't like it then. So either I'm thinking like a diehard from somebody who'll go back and watch it like I did and see it differently. The best people it's for is people into psychology and want to, watch this and then afterwards have a discussion about fear and how to deal with that and all this. So that's who it's best for.
So we have a new category: people who are a fan of psychology and fear who have never discussed it.
Josh makes a lot of good points.
No, I'm right.
I know, this is really freaking us both out. It's like, okay, Josh, we're working together today. I'm going to go for casual because I think you'd want a little bit more information about Clara so you don't get turned off by her like Auburn did. I just can't go for new, which is something holding me back because of not paying off the horror aspect of it. Casual.
I think I may have started this podcast voting for fan of the show, just because like I initially didn't like it, but like Frank said, I'm a fan. But I was a fan when I first watched it of, a whole different time and different characters. So I'm sure that colored my initial response. But I like what Josh said and Brian and Frank. So I think I would put it in casual. I don't think I would use this for a new Who viewer, like unless like Frank said they were a psychology student studying fear that quarter or semester. So yeah, I'm gonna go with casual viewer.
I'm gonna go with new just because I know somebody or people that would love the horror aspect of this. I think the way I enjoyed it on my first viewing, the idea of something underneath your bed and everybody having that same dream. I love that it taps into that primal universal question or fear, or at least we know what that feels like. And then fear being the constant companion of the Doctor, I think is a great idea that they've kind of toyed with over the years. And I like that they kind of manifest fear in a sort of physical embodiment in this episode. Personally, I wish it would have went a different way. Like, I think I've made it clear in this episode. But yeah, I still enjoyed watching Listen after several years. So that wraps up Listen. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damiel Paggio.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn, and you can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher.
Or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music,
and then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.